pay the money back.
First of all this business about not voting for the debt ceiling is ridiculous. Why? Because the $14.2 or $3 trillion that we owe happened before we owed it, and we still now owe the interest on what has been borrowed, whether it's Republican or Democrat.
We are paying interest on money that was spent by prior Congresses and presidents.
And if we don't pay the interest on it, if we don't raise the debt ceiling, the whole darn fiscal system collapses.
All right, you reject the Senator Pat Toomey argument that we can pay the interest from the income tax revenue. You think we have to borrow more money in order to pay interest on money that we've already borrowed and spent, right?
Let me take it, no. But let me take it a step in assuming that you're right, because this whole thing is so inequitable and so truly unfair. When last have they talked about raising revenue in order to balance the budget? They just don't talk about it.
When last have the Democrats, and even many of the Republicans, I'm not a partisan here, you know that, talked about stopping the spending or slowing the spending in order to balance the budget?
If you weren't a judge, I would say you changed the issue. Because the last question I thought you asked was, can we raise enough revenue without increasing the debt ceiling?
You understand?
And I say that this administration says that they're going to stop the spending and not have any taxes at all.
But this administration, the President Obama's administration, wants to borrow $1 trillion in 6 months. And then they want to borrow $1.7 trillion in the next 12 months. So they want to add $2.7 trillion to the debt without paying a nickel of it back. Are you in favor of that?
Judge, if you don't pay the interest on the debt.
No one's saying not pay the interest.
Well, how you got to pay it if you don't have the money?
I'm suggesting we shouldn't be borrowing more money. We should spend less and pay off the debt. You don't want to do that.
Where are you going to get the money from if you don't borrow it? You tell me.
Well, let's see.
We're not going to raise taxes.
We're
not going to stop these wars.
We should stop the wars. On that, we both agree.
Well, I hope so.
We should stop all 5 of the wars, but we do collect about $250 billion in taxes every month. Unfortunately, we also borrow $200 billion.
We have corporations that don't play zip. We have the trillionaires that don't pay
That would be General Electric, the chairman of which is the president's good friend and sits on his advisory board.
And he's not the only one that don't pay.
Look, nobody should pay more taxes than they owe. We know that.
Republicans are saying that you don't raise taxes and you just cut spending.
And the Democrats are saying just keep borrowing ourselves into oblivion.
That's just not so. But I tell you one thing, if we do have to cut, the immoral way in which they're cutting, the poor, the sick, the aged, is not the American way to do it.
Can I tell you, even when I disagree with you, I enjoy when you come on any show with me. Charlie Rangel, thanks for joining us. Congress may have reached a budget deal, but the mother of all budget battles is yet to come. Should we raise the federal debt limit? You know where I stand on that. But a fair and balanced debate is next. To you, Charlie Rangel. Raise the debt ceiling will be the next big showdown in Washington. Republicans are threatening not to vote for an increase unless long-term spending cuts are also introduced. Here's what Democratic New York Senator Chuck Schumer had to say about that.
Playing the same game they played on shutting the government down up till the last minute and using that as sort of leverage to get things they wanted. Unfortunately, we didn't go along with a lot of them. But doing that on the debt ceiling, a disaster. A formula of playing with fire that could actually have the credit markets stop taking U.S. debt and create a recession. This should be taken off the table now.
Should it be taken off the table? Here to discuss, Art Laffer, former economic advisor to President Ronald Reagan, and Steve Moore, senior economic writer for the Wall Street Journal. Art, to you first. Your very name, the Laffer curve, stands for fiscal responsibility and stands for lower taxes and not spending more than you take in. But you agree with Chuck Schumer and with Charlie Rangel. We should raise that debt ceiling and go out and borrow money to pay our old debts, don't you?
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. You know, the thing is, the hypocrisy of the other side is amazing. You know, President Obama, when he was a senator, voted against raising the debt ceiling.
Right.
And you know that Harry Reid, when he was a senator, if you just quote their quotes, they're exactly what the Tea Party is saying today. Now, I personally believe we should use the debt ceiling to get as much as we can from them. But no, this is not the time to have the Armageddon battle. Judge, we are going to take the Senate after the next election. We'll increase our lead in the House. At that time, we should make the big Armageddon battle and bringing it down with a Republican president, a Republican Senate, and a Republican House.
All right.
Why we fight the battle today when really we have a chance of losing politically as a result doesn't make sense to me. That's just me.
Steve Moore, would you rebut, reject, and bury forever this argument that we can't pay our debts on the basis of the revenue that the government collects alone without having to borrow $1 trillion here and $1 trillion there?
Get them, Steve. Get them.
I love what you've been saying, Judge. And, you know, just the hour that you're going to be on the air today, Judge, the federal government's going to borrow another $100 million. So these debts are racking up so quickly. I think Republicans do have to hold out for the kind of Armageddon budget changes. I think they need to get automatic spending cuts. I think they should get rid of the way we do the budget that's led to these $14 trillion of deficits. You know, we have something called current service budgeting. Arthur knows all about that.
Right.
Arthur, as you know, we build in these automatic accelerators in the budget every year. And I think we ought to have a path to a balanced budget over the next 10 years. If they don't reach those deficit and spending reduction targets, Judge, I think they should be an automatic hatchet that drops on the spending.
All right, but Art, I don't think this automatic hatchet thing would work. Do we really want federal judges, because that's who would do it, saying to the president, well, now you got to stop spending because you don't have this authority?
How else are they going to do it?
By stopping the borrowing and preventing the government from borrowing and forcing it to live within its means like the three of us do, Art Laffer.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I have a little problem every now and then. No, just teasing, Judge. Yeah, I think Steve's completely correct. But I think we need to make sure we don't lose the 2012 election. I mean, 2010 was the preamble, and the end game is 2012. You know, what we're talking about with the debt ceiling here is only something that could inure to our detriment in the coming election. And I just want to make sure we get rid of the Bushes and the Obamas from their overspending. And it's Bush in the last 2 years was terrible on this spending, and so was Obama. We can't go back to this, either party. It's not Republican or Democrat. It's not liberal or conservative.
All right.
It's not left-wing or right-wing. It's just
Arthur,
bad economics.
But Steve, you could take Arthur's argument, and you could apply it any time, any president, whether it's a conservative Republican or a liberal Democrat like we have now, wants to raise the debt ceiling. Basically, let's just do it one more time. Let's just do it until we control Congress. Every time, every president, from Eisenhower to Obama, has asked for an increase in the debt ceiling, they've gotten it, no matter how bad the times were, no matter how fiscally conservative the Congress was. Steve Moore, what do you say about that?
I think the absolute maximum point of leverage that Republicans will have in terms of cutting the budget will come on this debt ceiling. And I think Republicans cannot blink here. They have to basically say until we get a path to dramatic reductions in spending and dramatic reductions in debt. Look, if you've got an overspender, you do have to pay the debts you've accumulated, but you don't just keep giving a bigger spender a bigger credit allowance. As Ronald Reagan used to say, you don't give a big spender a bigger allowance. And I think that's what's at stake right here. And this is, Arthur, I think where the Republicans should draw the line in the sand with people like Chuck Schumer and Harry Reid.
Shouldn't we draw the line in the sand now, Art Laffer? We have about 30 seconds, rather than wait and hope that the Republicans take the Senate next year?
I think what I would like to see us do in this one, I'd like to see us get the tax cuts passed permanently so we get that issue out of here. I mean, the tax increases is the worst thing you can do in a bad economy like that. Who wants to raise taxes on the last three people working? It's just plain stupid. But now we have to bring control of this, and I'd like to wait until we get control of the Senate. We've got 53 Democrats and independents in there versus 47 Republicans. After the next election, we're going to have 53 or 55 Republicans in there, and we'll get this stuff through easily, Steve, just what you want. And you and I agree on this, I think.
You know what? We just borrowed another $10 million in this 6
During
minutes.
the course of this segment. You guys are terrific. Steve Moore, Art Laffer, thanks very much for joining us.
Great to be with you, Judge.
You got it. How the markets will react to the debt ceiling debate. More from Fox Business's Charlie Gasparino. Next. All right, Congress has until 11:59, 1 minute before midnight, this Thursday night to reach another budget compromise. So what will the markets be looking for? And what will Wall Street do if the debt ceiling is not raised? With me now on this and more, my colleague at the Fox Business Network and my good buddy Charlie Gasparino. What is Wall Street's reaction to the 11th hour compromise, the $38 billion cut, but still $1 trillion in borrowing?
Oh, I think they kind of slept through that. I mean, I think the debt ceiling is a much bigger issue, and I think what you're going to see is a lot of doomsday predictions from the street. Watch Goldman Sachs.
Right.
I mean,
why should we watch Goldman Sachs?
The epicenter of Wall Street progressive liberalism. Lloyd Blankfein, the CEO, Gary Cohn, the president, are two of the most progressive leftists, I guess left of center Wall Street executives we have. Huge backers of Obama.
Right.
You know, they have economists on staff that are, you know, dyed-in-the-wool Keynesians. If you don't spend money, they think
Didn't President Bush's Secretary of the Treasury, Henry Paulson, come from there?
He led it about 6 years ago. It was always I wouldn't consider Hank Paulson a Adam Smith libertarian tax cutter. I mean, but he's clearly a left of center Republican.
Your argument is that some of the richest fat cats in the land love when the government borrows, don't care about basic economics 101, and just want a piece of the action.
Hey, look, Goldman Sachs has been putting out report after report supporting big government worrying about the Republicans cutting spending that might hurt the economy. And my prediction is within the next 24 hours, you're going to see, or maybe a little longer than that. It might take a little more to get the presses running. You're going to see Goldman Sachs put out a press release, put out some research report that we are playing with fire Armageddon if the Republicans don't cave.
All right. We are hearing today that on Wednesday, the president will ask for tax increases. So the same president who signed into law the retention of the Bush-era tax cuts now is going to ask for tax increases on the very same people for whom he enacted the tax cuts, people that make more than $250,000 a year. How does Wall Street react to that?
You know, I think the rank and file Wall Street people will be obviously annoyed because a lot of them make $250 or more. I think that the leaders, the official message coming out of Wall Street, I think they'll say that's good because I think they will spin this, and they're big supporters of the president, that this is good for the deficit. There's not many people inside these Wall Street firms in the economics departments that follow the Laffer curve. Right. They believe that if you raise taxes, that actually does raise revenue, when we all know in the long term it really doesn't.
Right. Laffer demonstrated that if you lower taxes, it increases economic activity and so increases revenue.
And if you raise taxes, it marginally lowers economic activity, which lowers revenue in the future. All right. Before
we break, even though we're very good friends, I'm going to give you a chance to beat up on me. You know that I believe we shouldn't borrow another nickel, that we should not raise the debt ceiling, because I think there's a time to draw the line in the sand, and it's now. We're looking into an abyss that's going to take $14.3 trillion to fill. Tell me why I'm wrong.
Do you believe we should default?
No. Pat Toomey argues, a friend of yours and mine, now Senator Toomey, but formerly an economist, that we can pay our debt service and pay our bills on the income that is generated from income taxes. Well, if we can, we don't have to borrow.
Listen, I mean, this is a debate we're going to have in the next 24 hours.
Right.
If we could pay our debt service, I mean, no one wants U.S. going to default. That's big problems. Correct. If we could pay our debt service, let it ride. Let's play chicken.
So if we can pay our debt service, you'd agree with me, the time to stop the borrowing is now.
Right now. We have as Steve Moore said before, the Republicans have the best hand they have in a long time
and your buddies on Wall Street don't want that to happen.
Who cares about them?
All right. Charlie Gasparino, God bless you.
First off.
All right. Thanks very much for joining us. President Obama's budget compromise not gaining much applause from the left. Some liberals are publicly lashing out at the president as, quote, standing for nothing. Is he losing his base? That debate is right here next.